They got my name wrong again. Not just the spelling, the whole thing. The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, printed with silver ink. The kind that makes you sit up straighter just holding it. My daughter, June, found it in the mailbox before I did, her fingers still sticky from the peanut butter crackers she'd been eating in the back seat. "Mommy, look," she chirped, waving it like a golden ticket. "Is this for you?" I knew the handwriting before I saw the return address, elegant, decisive. Vanessa's. I took it from her carefully, my fingers leaving a faint smudge on the paper. I should have waited to open it, but I didn't. Right there, parked crooked in front of our duplex, with the afternoon sun creeping across the dashboard, I peeled back the flap. "You are cordially invited to a rooftop celebration in honor of Vanessa Clay, Senior Vice President of Brand Strategy." And underneath, typed in serif font, too proud to be corrected, "Miss Nami Clary and guest." Not Naomi, not Clay, not even close. For a long moment, I just stared at it, the way you might stare at a bruise that appeared overnight. Not because it hurts, not at first, but because you want to understand how long it's been there without you noticing. June leaned forward between the seats. "Are we going, Mommy?" I hesitated. "We'll see." She grinned and bounced back in her booster. "I want to wear my sparkly skirt." I didn't answer. Instead, I slipped the invitation into my tote bag, next to the grocery list and the unpaid water bill, like it belonged in that pile. Like it didn't mean anything. But of course, it did. That night, after June was asleep and I'd scrubbed the last dried glob of toothpaste off the bathroom counter, I sat on the edge of my bed and read the invitation again under the yellow lamplight. The typo was still there, still wrong, still small and pointed, like every other time. It wasn't the first time Vanessa's assistant, or whoever sent these things, had gotten my name wrong. Once, they'd addressed a holiday card to Naomi and son *. June's name was nowhere. Another time, my name had been printed so faintly on a place card at a gala that the server couldn't find me on the list. Each time, I told myself it didn't matter, that being included, even by mistake, was better than being left out entirely. But this time, the mistake felt deliberate, like a message whispered just loud enough for only me to hear. "We see you, but we don't really want to." I was still staring at the invitation when my phone lit up. A text from my mother. "No hi, honey, no how are you, just this. Please don't make this night about you. Vanessa worked hard. Just smile, be polite, and don't bring up the past." That was it. I let the screen go dark, then sat there for a long time, the house silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt hollow, like I'd become the caution tape at the edge of my own life, seen, but only as a warning. But June, she didn't see any of that. She saw sparkles and celebration and the chance to be near people who shared her last name. The next morning, she found the RSVP card on the counter and shouted, "We're going, right?" And I said, "Yes." Because as much as I wanted to disappear, I couldn't bear to let her think I wasn't worth showing up for. I'm standing beside her, half smiling, in sweats and a messy bun, holding a red marker. What that photo doesn't show, what no one ever talks about, is how we got there. Dad had passed 6 months before. The grief in our house didn't scream, it settled, heavy, quiet, and spoken. Vanessa was flailing. She'd bombed her last semester and was ready to give up on grad school applications entirely. I remember sitting with her at that dining table for hours, coaching her through essay prompts, formatting her resume line by line, printing mock pitch decks to boost her confidence. I even introduced her to Malcolm Rhodes, an old contact from a nonprofit I'd freelanced for. I didn't think twice, she was my sister. That year, I deferred school, took June with me to babysitting gigs, typed content copy late at night for small businesses just to keep the lights on. Vanessa, meanwhile, landed her first internship at Rhodes and Partners. Her life took off. Mine settled. At first, it didn't bother me. I told myself there'd be room for me later. But then birthdays came and went with my name forgotten in group texts. Family dinners where my seat moved farther from the center, until I found myself next to Coates on the guest bench. At one gathering, the slideshow of Vanessa's journey played on loop, and in every picture that once had both of us, I was cropped out. The worst part wasn't being excluded, it was how quietly it happened. No confrontation, no fight, just silence, like a door gently closing, locking itself. Mom used to say, "Vanessa's always been the driven one," as if I had chosen stillness. As if grief hadn't carved that choice into me. She told June once, right in front of me, "Your mom's good at staying in the background, that's a gift too, baby." I didn't correct her, not because I agreed, but because I was too tired to explain the difference between stepping aside and being pushed. Sometimes I'd wonder when exactly I disappeared. Was it the day I handed Vanessa the business card from Malcolm? Or was it slower, 1,000 little moments where I didn't raise my voice? The answer didn't matter, because somewhere between the garage presentations and rooftop promotions, my role shifted from older sister to invisible archive. And by the time I noticed, I wasn't just missing from photos, I was missing from the story altogether. I never plotted to get even, that would have taken energy I didn't have. Instead, I did what forgotten people do best, I got quiet. I got small. We moved to a 2-bedroom rental north of Round Rock, far enough from the city for the silence to feel like ours. June started kindergarten at the local elementary, and I picked up freelance copywriting again. Small businesses, mostly nonprofits who needed web pages with warmth. I kept my LinkedIn simple, no photos, no fanfare. I stopped attending family holidays, no one called to ask why. Most nights, after June was asleep, I'd stay up tinkering with documents no one asked for, resume templates for young women on career forums, guides for interns unsure of how to write their first cover letter. I sent one anonymously to a junior associate at Rhodes and Partners when I saw her post about burnout on Twitter. She never knew it was me, but the next month, I heard she'd been promoted. I didn't want credit, I just couldn't seem to stop giving. Still, I kept things, not out of spite, more like proof that I existed. An old camcorder clip of Vanessa and me practicing her pitch in our garage. A binder with notes in my handwriting labeled V's grad school apps. And one envelope, thick paper, hand-addressed with a letter I never sent. Inside, I'd written, "I don't want recognition, I just want to stop being rewritten." I folded it once, tucked it between pages of an old asterisk Reader's Digest my father had saved, and placed it in the drawer under the coffee mugs. Every so often, I'd find it again while reaching for filters or tea bags. I'd run my thumb across the edge, then close the drawer. Out of all the things I couldn't say aloud, that letter was the most honest. Because the truth is, when you grow up being needed but not seen, you learn to make usefulness your only currency. And when they stop needing you, you vanish. Still, life went on. June flourished. She built pillow forts, read books upside down, sang songs she made up about dinosaurs in love. She didn't know her mother was invisible at family functions. She didn't know about the photos I wasn't in, the gifts I wasn't thanked for, the times I almost spoke up and didn't. All she knew was that I showed up for her. Maybe disappearing from their story gave me room to start writing mine. I didn't plan to go to the promotion party, I truly didn't. But then June saw the invitation, and her eyes lit up like someone had promised her magic. She asked if we could bring cookies with sprinkles. She asked if her sparkly skirt was too much. And when I looked at her, I remembered what it felt like to be small, to hope for welcome, to not yet know how cruel families can be. So I said yes, not for them, for her. From the elevator, June gasped. It looks like a palace, she whispered, her hands clutching the cookie tin we'd packed that morning. She was right, it did. Balloon arches swayed in the breeze. Waiters moved like clockwork between tables draped in ivory linen, and a string quartet played a slow, elegant version of Asterisk Ain't No Mountain High Enough. We walked toward the check-in table. The young man behind it didn't look up, handed me a program, and gestured to assigned table assignments. I followed the arrows, scanning for our names. A woman in a headset spotted us lingering. "You're Naomi?" she asked, already half turned away. I nodded. "Table 17, she said, pointing. "Overflow." Her tone was smooth, practiced, the kind people use when they don't want questions. Table 17 was behind the catering station, just past the service hallway. The chairs were mismatched folding types with metal backs. A makeshift sign on printer paper read "Overflow Guests." A man in a polo shirt nodded at me as we approached. "You with the vendor team?" he asked. "No," I replied quietly. "I'm family." He looked away. I pulled out a chair for June. She climbed up, legs swinging, and set her decorated tin carefully in the center of the table. "I hope Aunt Vanessa likes it," she beamed. "I drew a crown on her head, 'cause she's like a boss queen." I smiled, unsure how to tell her that queens don't always recognize their makers. From across the space, I spotted Vanessa, navy jumpsuit, sleek bun, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by a circle of executives and camera flashes. She moved with ease, with poise, like the space bent slightly to her presence. When her eyes found mine, she hesitated, just for a beat, then walked over, all glossy charm. "Oh, wow," she said. "You came." "I did," I replied. Her eyes flicked to June. "Hi there, sweetheart," she said, voice rising half an octave. "Still drawing me in capes and heels?" "I made you something," June said proudly, holding out the tin. Before I could speak, another woman stepped in, sharp blazer, long braids, flawless lipstick. Vanessa turned to her immediately. "Jasmine, this is my niece, isn't she adorable?" A pause, then, without turning to me, Vanessa added, "That's her mom." "Not my sister, not even Naomi, just her mom." Jasmine smiled politely. "Oh, you work with kids too?" My mouth opened, but nothing came out. June glanced at me, confused. I nodded stiffly. "Yes, I do." The lie was easier than explaining why being invisible had become my native tongue. Back at the table, June tugged at my sleeve. "When's the cake, Mommy?" "Soon," I said, voice thin. The program began, lights dimmed, a slideshow bloomed across the screen. Vanessa at conferences, ribbon cuttings, handshake after handshake. The words vision, grit, elegance, asterisk faded in and out. The applause rose. June clapped. I didn't. I looked at the screen, searching for something that wasn't there, me. No late nights editing her pitch deck, no shot of the garage we turned into a mock boardroom, not even one picture with both of us. Just Vanessa, centered, backlit, perfect. My name hadn't just been left off a table card, it had been erased from a history I helped write. June leaned into me, whispering, "Are you sad, Mommy?" I swallowed hard. "No, baby," I said. "I'm just remembering something." And I was. I was remembering what it felt like to watch someone build a kingdom out of bricks you carried, then turn around and call you the help. Vanessa stood at the podium like she'd been born there. Her voice, polished and confident, filled the rooftop space with ease. Cameras lifted, guests leaned forward. She thanked her team, her mentors, her firm. She even quoted a business author. Then she paused, raised her glass, and said, "I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the woman who's always been persistent." A few polite laughs. "My older sister," she continued, A single mom, resilient, tireless, clearly unwanted by anyone else. Laughter, laughter that rippled and expanded, not from strangers, but from people I used to pass mashed potatoes to at Christmas. Some gasped, then laughed harder at the awkwardness, others chuckled like they'd been waiting for permission. I froze, my hand clenched around the water glass, slick with condensation. Across the table, June's smile faltered, her brows pinched in confusion. "Why are they laughing at you, Mommy?" I couldn't answer, I could barely breathe. Vanessa moved on, undeterred. "But seriously," she said, waving away the joke, "let's raise a glass to new beginnings." Applause erupted again. I stayed still. I wasn't a statue, I was ballast, keeping myself from drifting into shame. And then it got worse. From the front row, my mother lifted her glass and called out, "Used product, but still polishes up well." This time, the laughter had teeth. June turned away, her little shoulders drawn in tight. She clutched her cookie tin like a life raft, trying not to cry. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring straight ahead, willing the room to collapse into itself. No one came over. No one said, "that was too far." They just kept eating shrimp crostini and refilling their glasses. June's voice broke the silence between us. "Did I do something wrong?" I brushed her hair back gently. "No, baby," I whispered. "You were the only one who did something right." Then something shifted. A man rose near the stage, calm, tall, familiar, Malcolm Rhodes. "I'd like to say a few words," he said, not into a microphone, just loud enough. The room stilled, glasses lowered, waiters froze mid-step. Vanessa turned toward him, lips already curled into a smile. "Of course, Malcolm," she said, stepping slightly aside. He didn't return the smile. "Tonight, we're here to honor leadership, drive, success," he began. "But I want to speak briefly about recognition, real recognition." His eyes swept the room but landed on me. "There are people in this space whose names aren't on banners," he said, "but whose work built the banners. People who carried weight no one saw and taught others how to rise, not with applause, but persistence." Applause. You could hear the clink of a fork being set down, just that. No one breathed. Vanessa's smile didn't fade, it tightened. Then another voice, quieter, rose from the crowd. "I'd like to say something too." It was a young woman from Vanessa's team. I recognized her from an old staff photo. Her hands trembled as she stepped forward. "I know this is a celebration," she began, "but I want to acknowledge someone who changed my life." Vanessa nodded expectantly, but the woman didn't look at her. She looked at me. "Naomi Clay helped me during my medical leave," she said, her voice gaining strength. "She sent resources, she checked in. No one else noticed I was slipping, but she did. And I never got to say thank you." She turned to me fully now. "So, thank you. You saved me." A long beat, then applause, not cautious, not polite, full, real, for me. I didn't stand, I didn't bow, I just blinked. June squeezed my hand under the table. And then, from somewhere near the front, the slideshow shifted. The same images rolled. Vanessa at conferences, in offices, in control. Then it stopped, flickered, and a new image appeared, one I hadn't seen in years. Vanessa standing in our parents' garage, a pitchboard behind her, her hands mid-gesture. And me, still in sweats, red marker in hand, smiling at her like I believed she could take on the world. Below it, in soft script, where the journey really began. People turned, not all, but enough, and I saw their eyes widen, not with shock, but recognition. They'd laughed, but now they saw. Vanessa was still seated when the screen went dark, still smiling, but now the kind of smile that stretches too thin, like the last inch of fabric before it tears. She didn't speak. Neither did my mother. For the first time all night, their silence felt unsure. I didn't need them to say anything. As the applause settled, Malcolm stepped off the platform and made his way toward our table. He didn't rush, he didn't posture, he simply reached into his blazer and handed me a small, flat box, the kind used for keepsakes or jewelry. "This was left on the main table," he said. "I had a feeling it wasn't meant to be forgotten." Inside was June's handmade frame, slightly bent at the corners now, glitter glue smudged from too many hands. Tucked behind it, folded in thirds, was thick stationery. I unfolded it carefully. At the top was a logo I recognized, the nonprofit Malcolm chaired. Underneath, a formal letter. They were launching a mentorship initiative focused on resilience, on voices overlooked. They wanted me to lead the pilot. I stared down at the words, unsure what to feel. It wasn't the title that shook me, it was what Malcolm said next, softly. "We don't need the loudest voices. We need the ones who remember what it feels like not to be heard." I nodded. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me," he replied. "Just take what's already yours." When I turned back toward the crowd, the party had started shifting. The string quartet was playing again, but the mood had changed, not loud, not dramatic, just unsettled. Vanessa stood, finally, her arms crossed, jaw tight, but she didn't approach. She didn't have to. I walked past her toward the exit, June's hand in mine. She looked up at me, wide-eyed. "You were right, Mommy," she whispered. "You didn't need a big party to be seen." I smiled, real and small. "No, sweetheart, we just needed them to stop looking away." At the threshold, I turned once, not toward Vanessa, but toward my mother. She sat stiff in her chair, hands knotted in her lap. "You don't have to say anything," I said gently. I already stopped listening. And then we walked through the doors, down the hall, into the night air that felt clearer than it had in years. The car ride home was quiet. June dozed off, still holding her frame like treasure. I watched her in the rearview mirror, peaceful, safe, and I realized something. I wasn't angry, not anymore. Just done. Done shrinking, done asking, done being written out of stories I helped begin. When we got home, I didn't tuck the frame into a drawer. I placed it on the center shelf in our living room, glitter, bent edges, all of it. Not as a symbol of being celebrated, but as proof we were always here, even when they refused to see.